welcome back to the Bokeh and Mocha Podcast. My name is Brooke. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. For the episode today, I'm going to turn it over to Griff.
Okay.
Wow.
We got there. All right. Yes, thank you, Brooke, and again for tuning into the Bokeh Mocha Podcast. Again, be sure to like and follow and subscribe, whatever platforms that you guys are on, where we talk about photography from 3 different perspectives, with Brooke being our new up-and-comer, beginner photographer, hobbyist, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Myself going 5 years of photography experience as a hobbyist, transitioning into the professional field, and Christopher, of course, who has 15 plus years in the professional photography business. Today, Brooke, we are going to talk about the exposure triangle. And we already did this episode once before, but it was just Chris and I, and we just went back and forth under the assumption that people know what we're going to be talking about. But having you with your perspective here will help us kind of fine tune that just a little bit more. So for starters, this is photography 101, basically. This is your ground rule. Aside from the rule of thirds, this is probably the most important foundation that you will have in your photography journey.
And if you can master this with the exposure triangle, you can pretty much create any photograph style you want from your camera. So when we talk about, like, when I do my photos, most of my work is done in camera. And then when I go to Photoshop, it's very little changes to it because I learned from the photo exposure triangle as well, because we can go manipulate what we want the picture to look like in the camera. And this goes back to film era style of photography. So again, we didn't have Photoshop back in the film era. We had to do all this in the camera. So if you keep that going, you get a step up ahead when we get into the Photoshop world, and then you can get into the really fancy stuff in Photoshop.
I don't think I've worked with Photoshop very much. I think I only worked with it like half a semester of school.
Oh, there you go.
If that.
Most people don't even get that. Actually, I don't think I got any formal education in Photoshop. Did you do any formal education in Photoshop?
The formal education that I had with anything related to a camera was that I was in AV club in high school. And it wasn't even film. It was all video editing.
Oh, okay.
So filming sports games and stuff like that, and events and whatnot. So
well, cool. Well, let's jump into this triangle perspective. So Abigail has it already queued up for us. So our triangle consists of 3 sections with it.
That is the definition of a triangle. Yeah.
We have our aperture, which is how much light we're letting into the camera. And that's how much the aperture of the camera is being opened or closed. Then we have our shutter speed. Then we have our ISO. So
I mean, technically, all 3 of these are how much light we're letting into our camera.
True. True. Now, what we'll start with is shutter speed, because it is the simplest one to understand. When we look at this triangle, you can both see at the top we have 1/8, and the bottom we have 1/1000. This is how much of a second. So it's 1/8 of a second or 1/1000th of a second. That whole deal here is just a portion of what our camera can actually do. Most cameras can do bulb exposure, which means you can set it for as long as you want the camera to sit there, or however long the battery will last, essentially. And then some cameras have speeds. I think the nice cameras have speeds in like 3,000th of a second.
Yes.
I think mine caps out at like 1,500 or 2,000 is what mine caps out.
I have never shot or needed to shoot anything that fast, per se. So I never really dialed it that far up, and I don't even know what mine is.
I think I only did mine just because I wanted to see where it stopped.
That's fair.
What would you use it for?
So very good question. So when we look at the shutter speed, if you actually look at the guy that's going across it, at the 1/8, he's blurred. The slower the shutter speed, the more blur or the more motion that we're going to be introducing into the image. When you go to 1/1000th, you're going to have almost no motion. Now, when you do one that's the 1/2000th, anything of that, it's for something super fast. So if you were to take pictures, I'm sorry, I thought I muted my phone. Set that down over here.
All right.
If you were going to be taking pictures of the Thunderbirds,
Yep.
you'd want the fastest shutter speed you could possibly have if you're trying to capture them going over and getting that nice crisp photo with no motion blur at all anywhere in the image.
Okay.
That's not the way you take the picture. Planes fly. You want to track the bird and have some motion in the background so that way it shows how fast those things fly.
So in other words, like if you have your shutter speed dialed in just right, you can freeze a helicopter's propellers while they're in the air, kind of thing. So
which still doesn't look right.
It doesn't. It makes it look like a toy. You need a little bit of that motion blur to accent that this thing is flying. This thing is moving.
A good version of having the 1/1000th is getting the droplet of water effect. Have you ever seen the pictures where they have the droplet comes up?
Yeah.
That's what they're using, is a very fast shutter speed like that to create that almost completely suspended in space look of a droplet of water. You have a fast shutter speed. Yeah. So when you use your shutter speed, it changes how much light goes into the lens. So a slower shutter speed allows a lot more light to come into the lens, where a faster shutter speed, less light is able to actually hit that sensor because it's how quick the shutter is going through.
That makes sense.
So when we go to the next sections on the exposure triangle, we will then end up showing how to counteract that, because you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to shoot it at 1,000 shutter speed, click, and get the perfect picture.
Yeah.
When you work with the triangle, we'll bring it back up to the full screen here. We're going to just say for quick deal, if it's at 1/1000th and you have your ISO at 200, so you take your line at 200 and you take your line at 1/1000th and you go to where that point intersects, and it tells you you need an aperture of an f2 to be able to make those 3 points intersect at the same spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're finding that sweet spot, basically. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to add motion, sorry, I didn't mean to say. If you want to add motion, but you don't want to change your aperture or your ISO, you take that line and go back up to shutter, and it says 1/15th of a second is what you need. Now you've added motion into that shot.
Oh.
And it really is wild to think about, because, you think about shutter speed where, 1 second is pretty fast.
It is.
And then you have 1/8 of a second, and then 1/500th of a second.
Yep.
But yet switching from like 1/10th of a second to 1/500th of a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is astronomical just how quick. Like, you wouldn't think that the shutter would be, or the difference in speed would be that fast, but it really is, because you can definitely see the difference whenever you make those photos.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you know what shutter speed you should never let your camera get below if you're hand holding the camera? And we're going to make it super easy.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make it at just a standard 55mm lens, because the answer does change for every single lens that you use. But
that I didn't know.
For the standard 55mm lens, do you know what you should never let your shutter speed get below?
I don't, but I'm going to take a great guess.
Go ahead.
Hopefully it's a great guess. I'm going to say, I would say anything below, or I guess slower than a second. Because you don't want the shake of your hand or any hand movement, because obviously you can't hold perfectly straight. That'd be my guess.
You're pretty close.
Pretty good guess.
Yeah.
It's 1/125th of a second. Anything under that, you will start getting motion blur just from hand hold.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you're going to be tracking an animal or a car or something like that, you might want some blur in there. But if you're at slower than 1/125th of a second, the subject will also be a blur because of the motion that your hand is. Now, when you go up to 600mm, that number actually increases, and there's a calculated formula and everything that goes along with it. But the best rule of thumb is to always know that when you are running a standard kit lens, you should never go below 1/125th of a second, or else it will introduce motion blur just by hand.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay.
So I think we're going to go ahead and take a quick break there because that's kind of a nice good stopping point for shutter speed.
Yep.
When we come back from this next section, we're going to go into ISO on the next portion. So stick with us here after these commercials, and we'll come back to ISO.
Welcome back from that break. And we were just talking about that exposure triangle that was there on the screen. And I just want to ask, what exactly is ISO?
Well, good question. So ISO actually comes back from the film era. It's actually the film speed. So back in the time of film, you couldn't be able to just on the fly change your ISO. You actually had to buy film with that specific number. So you would have to go through, and it was how sensitive that film was to light. So if you got ISO 100, it is very much not sensitive to light. So you need more light in that ISO 100 to be able to expose the film.
Do you know if that was like how thick the film is, or?
It was a specific coating they put over the film.
Yep, the chemical compound.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the chemicals that they use to create film is what changed the ISO. So you went to the grocery store or to Walgreens, and right now you go to Walgreens, you go to the photo counter, and you're just like, here's my little cart. They would have a wall, and I'm not joking, it was a wall of just film boxes, starting at ISO 100 and working all the way up to ISO, I believe they only went up to, if I remember correctly, the Walgreens only went up to about 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But you could special order all the other more sensitive ones, and they were expensive. The more up you went, the higher the price it would go, because the chemicals that were used at ISO 100 were pretty much basic, standard, everyday chemicals. To be able to make it more sensitive and not need as much light, they need different, higher rated chemicals. So you'd have different tiers of price going up, and of course, everything Kodak and 6 other different film agencies would have all the different products on the walls for you to be able to choose from. Kodak was always the best. Not sponsored, because Kodak doesn't make film anymore. Actually, they do. I heard that they make specialized.
I was about to say, because there's still like some avid film photographers.
They make specialized film, and it is super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like what used to cost about $10 can cost about $500 to $600 for that same thing now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not a standard thing to work with anymore.
No, it's
From the
not.
south.
But yeah. So when we go to our exposure triangle and see the ISO, this is our film speed, which is now our processing speed for our camera's processor, how sensitive our processor can be able to be in a time frame.
Yep. So even though we're not using film, we're doing digital.
Yep.
It's now digital compensation for the lack of light.
Yep. And because of the fact that we're using digital computer pixels, once we get past what the standard film era was, which I want to say was actually 2400 was the maximum ISO you could get in the film world. Once you get past that, the camera is actually creating light in that pixel by using whatever's around it. So the higher your ISO number, the more what we call hot pixels come into play, where the camera thinks that there needs to be more light in there, and it changes that pixel. So that's why it looks pixelated with these little random bright pixels. Yep. Those are hot pixels. Mm-hmm. So to get away from that is you keep your ISO on a lower number. If you're outside during the day, ISO 100 all the way, because that is designed for super bright outside sun. If you're inside of a building, ISO 400 is actually better, because it gets you better ambient light to go through the sensor. Now, we've seen my picture of the star trails that we have. It's all over the studio. It's my favorite shot. If you actually look very closely, like zoom in, you will see hot pixels in there. And that's because I have that set at ISO 6400, which that camera, it was maxed out at 128,000. So I was one step down from what that camera could do, which meant I could have more hot pixels through it. When you look at your camera, whatever the maximum ISO is, to be safe, you need to be 3 steps down off of the maximum to minimize the amount of hot pixels that camera can actually produce. Because everything past that is at the very edge of what that processor can be able to accomplish. So with the ISO, we'll go back to the big version here. If we have outside and we want no motion on our image. So we want one, I'm looking at this wrong. Something's wrong here. I am looking at this wrong. We want no motion, so we would be about 1/125th of a second. Okay? That would be where we want just enough to have no motion. At ISO 200, follow that up to 125 and go over, you now want an aperture of an f4. That gives you the proper exposure for that image. Do you see how that makes sense?
Yeah.
Go up, 125 comes over. You can go back to the main camera for this. So we go up, ISO comes over, and then we take that intersect point and we find the line to wherever it's balanced. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
But now if you notice, we have other different balances on that. We can go to f4, or we can go up to, I believe that's an f8, up there. And when we talk about it on the next section of why we want different apertures, that's why there's multiple intersection points. So it's never just a straight line.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So here's something that I found out while I was researching.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what ISO actually stands for?
I never can remember.
International Organization for Standardization. So it's the standard that the film industry had put in for it. But it also comes from a Greek word, and I got it right this time. Greek.
Yeah, we got yelled at last time for saying Latin.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, the organization also shows the short name ISO because it comes from the Greek word for isos, which means equal.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. So the lower the amount of light you have, the higher the ISO you're going to want to have. So if you're outside at night, bump up the ISO, it gets you up there. Unless you have a really, 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 really good lens. Remember last time or 2 episodes ago, we talked about equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It was last episode.
It was the last episode, yeah.
And we were talking about that art lens and how much more expensive it is just by going down to an f2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that if you don't have that kind of money, because we're doing a lot of money, you use stuff like this to still mimic those images. Now, there was an image I took a long time ago with a water fountain that was actually kind of cool. And this was a kid sticking his finger into a water fountain. Here it is. You can see how past his finger, we've got all of these little bubbles of water. That is because I have it at a fast shutter speed. But also, I introduced light. Can you tell that there's a flash being used?
Yeah.
So that's another trick that you can all do, is introducing more light to your subject to keep your balance with it as well. Now, this photo was actually taken, as you said before, you were in AV club in high school.
Yeah.
I was in a photography class in high school. And this was taken in high school, all the way back there. We won't say when that was. All the way back there, when I was first learning photography in a classroom style environment. I only took 3 semesters of that, but it wasn't an official course. It was part of our homeschool co-op that we did. But with this, I was tasked with freezing time. That was our task that we had to do. And I think I did it. I think I froze time.
I'd say you did.
So, but on the next section, we're going to get into Aperture.
Mm-hmm.
And Aperture has a really cool feature that comes along with it. You excited?
I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm everything.
All right.
Let's find out what that is.
Well, after everyone comes back from break, we'll find out. We'll see you guys shortly.
Welcome back to the Bokeh Mocha Podcast, segment 3 of the exposure triangle, which means that we're on the third part of the exposure triangle. This time around, we're going to be talking about aperture. And aperture, the best way that I could probably describe it is, Brooke, your pupil, your iris, contrasts, dilates, all that jazz. Camera lens does the exact same thing. When you look down the middle of a camera lens, I mean, we're not going to be able to see it on any of these because those are currently being used right now. But when we're doing shots or taking photo shoots, next time that you're looking at the lens, like watch how that will actually change while we're shooting. There's just that little like kind of spiral disc thing that in there that like tightens or expands. So here's the question: would you think that would you want it like wide open, or would you want it closed off a little bit more?
For
a picture,
just a picture, just in general.
I would say somewhere happy middle. I'd say
that's really not a bad answer, to be completely honest. Yeah,
it really depends on what you want to do. Because here's the trick that Aperture does with your camera: it creates depth of field. So when you have an aperture of a 2.0, we're talking about just general on our deal, it actually creates a very shallow depth of field. So if you have anything behind your subject, it will blur it out. If you increase that aperture to an 8, you've increased your depth of field so much that anything behind your subject becomes in focus.
So is that the same as an f-stop?
It is the f-stop.
Oh, it is?
It is the f-stop.
That would do
Yeah,
it.
the aperture is the f-stop. So if you're an f2.0, then that means that you're going to have a very narrow depth of field. And there are what do we find out? 1.2, I think is what we found out.
Well, I think it was 1.4, I want to say. Maybe it was 1.2.
It's still...
You're talking about that art lens still?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it was 1.2, if I remember right.
If you're taking a picture of a person and you have that low of an f-stop, you can actually start blurring out the person's face because you are super narrowing your point of focus, which is great for an artistic part, not so much for a portrait shoot.
Yeah.
Now, there are some aspects of the aperture where you want to capture so far, like all the way far. One of the pictures we were talking about in the last segment, which was the Starry Night photo, I had to use a very high aperture. The problem with that is, this one was exactly what I'm thinking of. I have the subject in the front, we have the tree in the background, and we have the stars. Everything has to be in focus or in a range of focus in order to do the shoot. But this is being taken at night. So we have to use our skills from the exposure triangle to be able to build this image. So my subject is not moving. It's parked. For those of you who love Big Boy, I love Big Boy. It's my favorite train in the whole world because it is the largest steam engine ever built, and 4014 is the only Big Boy in full operation that actually runs across the country. So it's a marvel in of itself. Now, Big Boy's parked overnight here. Because it's not in motion, I can bring my shutter speed really slow. So I can bring it down to 1 second. In fact, for this one, I was actually at 3 seconds. So that lets in a lot more light, which then means that I can take my aperture and bring it up to that 7. So I can have the train and the tree and the stars all in the depth of field for its focus. And then, of course, I have my ISO up there. I believe it was 3200 or 6400 for this shot. And you can actually kind of see there is some artifacting coming on the edge because we have the glow of Hays, Kansas that is actually in the image as well. Creates this different feel to the image.
I like that. I like how you can also see the roundness.
Yep. So that's because this is taken over 1 hour. And with that, it's actually taken over an hour. As I said, it's 3 seconds for an image. Then all of the images get stacked onto each other, and it creates that star trail motion all the way across. So you could, if you really wanted to, say, in the old film era to do this, you would say, I need a shutter speed of 1 hour. The shutter opens, stays open for an hour, and then closes. So you'd have to use your exposure triangle to be able to determine if it's open for an hour and I need an exposed image, what f-stop would I need it at? What ISO do I need it at? And you go through all the formulas for it to be able to figure out what it is. Now, the problem we have here in Hayes, especially with Big Boy, it's super popular. There are a ton of cars moving in and out of all the pictures. And I had to go through and darken each one of them. That's what we're talking about Photoshop goes through. So this is what we saw, how we saw the train that night. But there's still more that goes with it. So do you kind of understand our exposure triangle a little bit more?
A lot more.
A lot more?
A lot more.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a lot to take in, though.
It is.
It is.
And this is a show that we put in as the fire hose on medium. So you take a lot of info.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you, Chris.
Absolutely.
So why is it that the higher number means the more narrow the aperture? So
Don't remember the full technical point. I do remember that it has something to do with the percentage of how much was covered, but I don't remember the actual what that number referred to.
Oh, okay. So again, pulling up research here real quick. They're measuring a ratio. They're measuring the F number, so it's focal length over the diameter of the aperture.
And gets you your ratio
and gets
percentage of how much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like
So,
I said, I couldn't remember exactly
Yep.
what it was, but it was how much was being covered up.
Yep. So like a aperture of like f2 is technically 1/2, while an aperture of f16 is 1/16. Mathematically speaking, kind of. I mean, it's not
I think it's the way
perfect.
around. 2/1, right?
No,
Because it's your focal over.
no, it's your focal length over your diameter, I think. See, this
This is why I'm a
this
photographer.
is this is why
I'm an artist, not a mathematician. We're probably going to have a whole bunch of
Yep.
people on YouTube and say, no, this is the way it's supposed to be done.
Yep. Yep.
Huh? Okay. Our technical director over here.
Technical director Abby has my back.
Turn it over to the YouTube audience. Tell us, is it going to be F for an F2.0? Is
Well-
it 1/2 or is it 2/1?
Well, okay, think of it this way: half an inch is bigger than 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah, but it's how much is covering.
No, it's how much is open, I think.
We're going to turn this over to YouTube.
Find it out in the comments.
Hey,
We'll run a poll. Who's right and who's
Yeah.
wrong?
is it Griff or is it Chris? Go through that. Well, sadly, though, I think we're going to have to end on that one. And we're going to have so much.
We're just gonna have a rage war down in the comments. That'll work.
Good. We need one. But we're going to go ahead and leave it at that.
Primaries are better than Zooms.
Huh?
Primaries are better
Oh, don't
than
start
Zoom.
that one. Leave that for a different episode.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll be good.
We're going to go ahead and turn this episode off before it goes any more off the rails. But next time, we're going to have some more information.
Not even
for
gonna
you.
be here next time, so
Oh, boy.
because I'll be fired.
Next time, we'll have some more information for just you. We're going to be replacing
What?
Griff here.
Deal. All right. Finally, a nice chair.
Very good. You get a promotion.
Finally.
That
That's
just means you have to go into commercial photography then.
You can have
Well-
your spot.
We'll go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our show here, and we'll see you guys next time here on Bokeh Mocha. Until then, keep shooting.
Keep sharing.